Hi, and welcome back to Military Law Talks. So for today's video, I wanted to do a quick video about government ethics, specifically about gifts and conflicts of interest. And this video is intended to serve as kind of a baseline of knowledge to help you understand a recent conviction of a four-star Navy admiral. And so it was a pretty big case. But you kind of have to know something about the law to help really understand the case. And so I'm going to give, like I said, a quick down and dirty ethics in 10 minutes or less. Okay, so I'm just going to cover gifts and conflicts of interest. Know that normally when I've taught ethics in the past, it's an hour-long class. I could talk even longer than that. So this is a really, really brief overview. Okay, so government ethics are regulated by a regulation that applies to all executive branch employees. And it's found in 5 CFR, that's the Code of Federal Regulations, Part 2635. And so there's several different parts to the government ethics regulation, and there's a definitions part. And so this regulation defines a gift as any, and this is a quote from the regulation, any gratuity, favor, discount, entertainment, hospitality, loan, forbearance, or other item having monetary value. It's a really broad definition. It's essentially anything of value. So when we talk about gifts, we're talking about really anything of value. And so it can also include training, transportation, local travel, lodging, meals, whether paid for in kind, like to the business instead of to the employee, or maybe just like a purchase of a payment or a ticket or a reimbursement of something. So it's a really broad definition. And our general rule is that federal employees cannot solicit or accept a gift from either a prohibited source or based on official position. And you're probably wondering, well, what's a prohibited source? A prohibited source is anyone who seeks to do business with the government or does business with the government. Essentially, contractors. Generally, when we're talking about prohibited sources, we're talking about contractors or potential contractors. And so our general rule is that you can't accept or solicit gifts from contractors or other prohibited sources, or a gift given because of your official position. Now, there's a lot of exceptions to the rule, and we're not going to get into those exceptions for sake of time for this video, but just suffice to say that generally these gifts are not given out of the goodness of the contractor's heart. There's usually an ulterior motive. And so it's not really a gift, it's actually a bribe. And so there's a federal law, it's a federal criminal statute against bribery. And so it's 18 USC, that's the US Code 201, and anything in the Title 18 US Code, that's the criminal code. So anything with 18 USC, you know that it's a crime. It's a federal crime. And so there's a federal crime against bribery. So individuals in the federal government employees who accept gifts or solicit gifts based on their official position or from a prohibited source can be charged with bribery, this criminal offense in criminal federal court. And then conflicts of interest are a little different than gifts. So conflicts of interest, these are other statutes and other rules and other regulations that govern conflicts of interest. But our general rule is that as a government employee, you can't take some sort of official action that would benefit you or someone close to you in a personal way. And so you can't, in your official job, either approve a contract or recommend a contract or do something else that would benefit you or someone close to you financially or really any sort of personal benefit. And so there is a financial conflict of interest, and that's criminal. And that is if you take some sort of official action that benefits you personally, either financially, or someone with an imputed financial interest. And what does imputed interest mean? It means someone that's very close to you, that their finances are essentially your finances. Generally, that's a spouse, a minor child, a general business partner, but it could also be a prospective employer. And that's important for the next video that I'm going to do on this Navy admiral who was recently charged and convicted in federal court for not only bribery, the gifts, accepting gifts that he shouldn't have, but also for financial conflicts of interest. And so that all plays together. And so normally, as a government employee, if you know that you're going to take some sort of official action, or maybe you're going to make a recommendation on a contract, or you're going to approve a contract, maybe you're on a source selection committee that you help select the potential contractors. If you know that there's a potential financial conflict of interest, maybe your spouse works for a contractor who's going to bid on that contract, or your minor child has stock in your minor child's name in one of the companies that's going to bid on that contract. That's a conflict of interest, and you need to raise that conflict of interest to your supervisor or others, and you can take certain steps to disqualify yourself or to divest yourself from that conflict of interest. And the most common is that disqualification, is that you aren't going to take any sort of official action, and you're not going to supervise anyone else who's going to take some sort of official action, that instead someone else in the government is going to take that official action. And so you would recuse yourself. It's the rules use the word disqualification, but you'd write a disqualification and you'd remove yourself from any sort of action to take any sort of action on that contract. And remember, that can include potential employers. So if you know you're leaving government service, you're going to retire or resign your position, and you're in negotiations for employment with a government contractor, that government contractors now, their financial interests are imputed to you, the employee. And so these are important factors, important things to know to help you understand the next video that I'm going to do in this series about Admiral Burke. And so this is just a down and dirty, very quick understanding of gifts and conflicts of interest for federal government employees. And these are the ethical rules that are in place because when you work for the federal government, you're in a position of public trust. And these positions are not only highly visible positions, particularly for a general officer, but they are positions of public trust that the public needs to have trust in the government, that the government is doing the right thing, spending taxpayer dollars appropriately and not for their own personal private gain. And so that's why these rules are in place to ensure that there's integrity with government employees. And so the case, the Burke case, which I will detail in the next video in this series, it really undermines that public trust because we had a very, very high-ranking military officer who didn't follow these ethical rules. So I'll see you in the next video. If you haven't subscribed to my channel yet, please subscribe, like this video, share it out there, and then make sure you watch the next video about Admiral Burke. See you in the next video.